Hi guys, my name is Sobi. Today I found the required time to begin this channel, which will be about certain developments in the web area. Mainly I will be focusing on Laravel framework with the underlying technology on Docker, where we will be building different projects. So my background is mainly focused on web development, also the business area, but mostly the web development in PHP. I'm also experienced in MySQL and in JavaScript, mainly developed different applications with Vue.js. And lately I've been migrated all my works towards Docker. So I have like 12 years of experience in PHP, and I think 6 or 7 years with Laravel. So that put aside, I would like to introduce you our first project, which we will be working on. It will be an API project, like for a real use case. There's a platform or shop or e-commerce, whatever, which has different users or customers, and these users will have invoices, payments, orders, logs, and different kind of relationships between them. And firstly we will build the backend stuff, the APIs, of course with authentication tokens, and maybe later on in this series we'll focus on the front end, which will be built with Vue.js. So let's begin. What we have firstly here, we have a fresh Laravel project. It's Laravel 9.12 with PHP 8.1, which is installed on a Docker server. Okay, as you can see, it's running. We have the database, we have the web server, and we have the application, the database, and the NGINX, the web server, which is bridged by a network called demo. So we have a few configurations here. I won't get into these now, but everything is working fine, and everything spin up. So our first stuff is that we have a user, which in our case will be our customer as well, and these users will have addresses, correct? So for this we have to create a user. We have the user. Let me open this. User.php, which comes default with the Laravel. Here I created a relationship which specifies that a user may have multiple addresses. So we must specify, okay, let's specify the return type, which will be has many. Okay, so for this we will create some dummy data, which will be factories. For this we have the user address factory, which I've created. We have the country, ISO, city, street, house number, zip code, and the user ID. The user ID, it's automatically creating a relationship for the user. And as we can see, I have here the tables. Let me just empty the database. Let's truncate, let's delete all the tables just for now. Okay, and I will enter the Docker. Let's enter this docker exec it bash. So I'm inside the Docker now, PHP artisan migrate. PHP artisan migrate will create all the tables for us in our environment, but we want to create the user addresses because of the dummy data and the users. Okay, for this we may use multiple commands. PHP artisan db seed, and this will seed the file and enter the user addresses, and automatically it's creating the relationships, as you can see, user ID, but also it created the user, in our case the customer. And how can we test this? Let's see. If we go here, PHP artisan Tinker. Tinker is the console helper for us. It's a great tool. Let's see, user, find one. Let's get the first user. So we have the first user. User addresses. I think it's addresses or address. User addresses. Okay. And it's returning has many relationship. Okay. So let's see. For each user addresses as address echo address city. So we have the first city. But for this, I will change the Tinkerwell because it's more pleasant to work with. Let's create a new okay, let's delete that, and we're going to open the project. It's public API and it's running in Docker. Okay, okay, user find one. We have a problem here, I believe so, because we didn't check this. Okay, so we have the first user. Let's see, user equals, so addresses, user addresses. It's typo. Okay, so we may count these. Count. So let's see each user, how many addresses does it have. Okay, this user has an address. Good. Let's see if we can find and also load the relationship with addresses. I think it won't work. Where ID equals 1 with addresses first. So as you can see, we selected the first user with the relationship with addresses and the first occurrence of the user. So we have the user and also we have the address of it. Okay. So for now we have created certain users. But for now, let's see. PHP artisan db fresh seed. This is a new command that we can use, and let's create not one, not two relationships, but let's create let's go to the seed. Let's create 100 users. Count 100 addresses, sorry. Okay, and let's run this command, db migrate fresh seed. Okay, and as you can see, we have 100 addresses and users. Okay, good. So our next step would be, let's create an API endpoint which will return our users. Let's close this up, and we should create a controller. But first, let's create a route API and Auth Sanctum. I don't know, we have Sanctum installed. Let's see. The Sanctum is a package which enables us to generate different tokens. Let's see. User find one. We have the first Dr. Merle Dietrich, and user create token API demo. Let's see if it's working. Okay, we have its token. So we've created the first token for this user. Okay, good. So we have Sanctum. Okay, let's create a new file called API VW1 version 1. Okay, we're also Sanctum user, but let's go to the route service provider. So here we can create a new file. So mapped all the route files. Okay, and for this we will use API version 1, also version 1. So this enables us to version our APIs, and if we go here we can see clear PHP artisan route list to see our routes, API user, and also we have version 1 because we duplicated the file. We have API version 1. Okay, so for now we have this. Let's create a resource controller. Let's see how does that look. So resource API resource. So for this we are gonna use the Laravel's built-in feature, and we will create the resource. PHP artisan make resource user resource. Okay, and generating resource. Okay, so we have the user resource to array. Okay, let's see what else. We can do this, copy this. Let's get the user ID, API VW1. Okay, route group. So we will group all the routes which will start with user. Okay, so we'll put this here, route get user, and we will prefix it with user. So this way we can ditch the user from here. User resource, import class. And let's try this out in Postman. Postman is the framework for testing APIs. And let's see, new request. and it will be called get users. So HTTP localhost port 8020 v1 user and the ID. ID will be 1. So let's see if it's working. It says that it's not found, VW user. Let's see if the route exists. API.v1. Yeah, that's the problem. So the problem is in the route service provider, it should be v1. Okay, let's see now. So it said that the route login is not defined. It says because to be able to access this route, we need to be authenticated. As you can see, we have the Auth Sanctum. For Auth Sanctum, it accepts a bearer token, which we've created already with here. And let's copy this value and enter it the Postman authorization bearer token, and we put here the token. Okay, let's save this as user resource users. Okay, good. Save. And now let's see what it happens. It says that the class user not found on API VW1 ID 24 user. Import class model user. Okay, let's see now. So we have the first occurrence, ID 1 MariaDB and its data. So for example, if we don't want to return the email verified at, we can create that in the user resource. As per example, we can return only certain fields to array. Let's see. Okay, and if we run this now, email verified at will be gone, as you can see. So also, I don't think that also we can return the address. Let's see if it's working. And thus we have its addresses. So for now, we can query all these users by ID and get the users. What about if we create a user, an address for the second, let's create an additional address for the first user. For this we will use user address factory user ID one create. Okay, so we created a new address. Let's see if it's appearing here. So this user now has two addresses, correct? Because we've mentioned it in the factory. So for now, we have this first user. So the API, it's working as expected. If we have no results, then we should have an exception. So we can create a controller for this functionality, because I don't like it to have it outside. So for this I can create, let's create from here a new controller, PHP artisan make controller user resource. Okay, user controller index. This will be the index, the show. This will be the show method. Okay. Show import user import model. Okay, and for this we will get the function, but we will do it like this: user resource, user controller class, and the method show name. We will add a name for this route. We'll say user dot show. Let's see if it's appearing here. User ID user dot show, but for this we should prefix, let's say it api.v1 user prefix. Okay, user show. So if I refresh this, it should work the same as it did previously, but it's not working. Let's see why. Because I'm not returning anything. Okay, good. So we're back in business. For the show. But if we have nothing, user if user return this, okay, else return message user not found. Okay, let's see. User, this is the error. User not found. Let's test that one. Not found, find. Okay, message not found. But this method is not so elegant. We will call it API macro service provider, which will create a response, a macro of API that has a response of JSON, and this will return a beautiful response. But for this to work, we have to register this in the app configuration file, and let's say that this is API macro service provider class. Okay, so for now we can use this. If the user is empty, we will return response, and also we have the API. So the API accepts an is success, false, accepts a string of description, user has not been found, please check your ID. Okay, and the code is 400 by default, and the data if we have something like that. So let's test this out. We should have a beautiful response, as you can see, and also the response is 400 bad request. Okay, and also we can change this if we would like. User resource, we can use response API, because we can, is success, true, description, user has been found by the provided ID. Okay, and data will be this. Let's see how this looks. As you can see, we have the same structure for our API. Okay, and if you put something that does not exist, it's false. Oh, we have the message. This should be the message. User description. The description should be returns a user by the specified ID. Okay, message. Okay, and we can do this private string description okay, good, and we can use here and here this description. Okay, and now everything is working as expected.